Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode, which has been scheduled to be given since like 2 days ago. There was something that I would say an inner vision that I managed to receive and tune into that inspired the title of this episode. And so, there's one side of me where I give these talks and I am attempting to be, in some sense, a universal speaker. When I give these talks, I don't know if people realize it, but I am speaking to conscious life. Now, I am still a human being, and so as a human being, there is the relationship I have with my inner realms. It is in some sense the story that inspires me to exist. Now, 2 days ago, something interesting happened that led to the title. Pretty much the inspiration was that something to tell listeners about myself. I was raised in Iran. I was born in Iran. I was raised there for some time. Then my family moved to Canada. And then I was raised in Canada for some time. And then my family moved back to Iran. I was raised in Iran for some time. And then my family came back to Canada. Now, I got the privilege of, the conditioning of a theocratical society, whether it's an advantage or a disadvantage. My mindset was raised, in a religious environment. And that means you can't live in Iran without acknowledging the religious dimension, because in some sense, church and state, or mosque and state, are not separate. So the reason I'm sharing this is I want to share with the listeners that there is a dimension to me as a person that prior to even the concept of meditation had been introduced to the concept of prayer. And especially in the last 10 years, the way I would say this act of prayer has been, it hasn't been a sort of, I would say, maybe not a satisfactory religious prayer, but the roars of the heart. The title of today's episode is A Roar of My Heart. And pretty much I found myself, I think this was like 2 days ago again, where pretty much in my inner realms I envisioned that I was standing in a world where there were so many beings, not just in the observable universe, not the beings we see. And there was this, how would I say it? There was this urge. There was this force in my heart where I felt as if giving a command to the universal sector, and this was this experience I'm telling you about, which led to the title of this episode. This experience is one where I am, I would say it happened when I was alone with the universe. A collective command to all individual beings in the universal sector. This inner event, this sort of inner behavior of mine, The command was pretty much, imagine finding yourself in a moment where you are shouting, you are commanding all existence to go towards the advanced civilization. You see, dear listeners, our world has been haunted by duality. The mind of, or the intelligence of mind has been entranced by duality. What that means is that the human intelligence has a capability to fathom creatures with chaotic motive and creatures with ordered motive. And so imagine that you found yourself, let's say the general, I've used this metaphor before in other talks, imagine the general of another parallel universe, coming to a parallel universe where the armies of chaos and order are about to, continue their infinite dance. And so imagine a being that arrives to the realm and commands the realm, commands both, the armies of chaos and the armies of order, or in another way of saying that would be the constitution of all beings in the universal sector. To me, an advanced civilization is a universe calling its own name. It's a universe running after the truth of its possibility. For me, I will tell you that it's not that, I close my eyes and I fathom there's other beings in other dimensions. I know there is another intelligence aside from human intelligence that is present, that is involved in how we're all functioning. But pretty much, I would say a command to all individual beings in the universal sector would be that whether you are a chaotic entity, whether you are an ordered entity, live for the advanced civilization. Honestly, I find no greater purpose to my manifestation. I have, you can say, sat in this world days wondering in some sense what is the meaning of the eyes. Is the purpose of the mind to lead to action, or is the purpose of the mind to change the context where action occurs? And I would say that I guess maybe this side of me is more hidden to the audience. Usually in these Mr.Within talks, I'm trying to, I uphold the virtues of clarity and silliness when the depth of the concepts kind of like expand. But I would say there is a part of me, guys, which is angry, but it is not angry at anything. It is angry at how the future may miss out. If I was to wonder what is one desire that is keeping me attached to this world of ours, the desire is not poetry or power. I will tell you that one of the first things that an intelligent being realizes in a conscious world is that the conscious intelligence has edges. The edges of human intelligence is non-ideological presence and non-ideological movement. And what intelligence can be even considered as. Intelligence is the ability to recognize that in moments of movement, embodiment is experienced, embodiment is known. And in moments of stillness and silence, there's an identification of the mind with its original state, which is another way of saying that before there was a character in a story, there was a space that held a world. For me, I don't know how to say it, how to give it words, but the strongest emotions, I have thought about the concept of love in this world. You don't know how many people I have spoken to. I have even been, scolded by beings, and I would say as if I have been scolded because in the sense that when I give these talks, people feel that I am not prioritizing the love for the world over the ambitions of the outer realms. But I will tell you, I will I am more like a strategist, and as a strategist, I look at the battlefields that are present and then I propose strategy. All that I have been doing really in these Mr. Within talks is proposing probabilities to reality. Imagine there was a human being, let's say reading a book in the park. And imagine out of nowhere an angel, a mighty angel appeared, and imagine out of nowhere a mighty chaotic being, a mighty demon appeared. So imagine there's this human being reading a book, and this mighty angel and demon appear. And in some sense, they are both deciding. Imagine the angel is trying to protect this person who's reading a book in the park, and imagine the demon is trying to destroy this person. And midway in the fight of poetically, in the battle of the yin with the yang, you know, I am pretty much saying that if the most chaotic being found the human being, and the most ordered being found the human being, the most chaotic entity and the most ordered entity, the same response to the purpose of both dimensions can be given. It's as if the person is, you know what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that for the first time, the position I'm in is very unique. Because the species hasn't awakened to its multidimensional nature, but it has been multidimensional from the beginning. Part of what is imbued with multidimensionality is the ability to perceive dimensions without identifying them. The human mind right now is again entranced and entrapped by duality. The cultural construct is dualistic in nature, and the nature of language requires more than one memory to be applicable. The human identity being established as a self in a world is like 1 plus 1. Self plus world equals life. Imagine the human species was marching towards an advanced civilization. That means imagine 8 billion human beings, 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. They were like, we have the opportunity, as much as we appear as lost souls in the void, we can in some sense find worlds in the void. It's another way of saying that imagine the whole species advancing at the most advanced pace towards an advanced civilization, and imagine midway, like imagine in a span of, personally my strategy is like in 3,600 years, I have envisioned, efforts of civilization 2.0. But what I'm trying to say is imagine the human species is so busy in advancing that when there's a hypothetical extraterrestrial invasion, imagine like an advanced civilization is in the progress of being built. So imagine 1,000 years from now, the efforts of the advanced civilization, it's as if the seeds that my voice are going to sprout. And so imagine there was hypothetically an alien invasion of a species that is trying to reach the advanced civilization. Imagine that alien species entering our clouds with its fleet and suddenly realizing the human species is not reacting. It's as if aliens have come to invade the earth and human beings don't care, right? They're not caring about the alien. And so imagine the aliens come down to see why human beings don't care about this fleet of extraterrestrials in their sky, and then they realize humanity, the human beings alive marching towards advanced civilization, they have such an advanced perspective that fear is a tiny percentage of all the ways that you can respond to the moment. Right? What I'm trying to say is that the species gets into this algorithm of wondering about its most advanced state, and any being that intervenes, whether of chaotic nature or of enlightened nature, will be pulled by the force of mankind's vision. You see, when you think about the purpose of the human being is to live among humanity, and when you think about the purpose of the species is only an advanced outcome of a balance of outer forces with the balance of the inner force that holds them all. The mind is very complex, and something they don't say to people is that you need to make your mind your ally. All those people who feel they are lucky, who feel they are unlucky, who feel they are unfortunate, who feel karma is messing with them. This is all occurring because the human being has not found a contextual purpose to the moment. The concept of a purpose is so incredible that without it, life is meaningless. But at the same time, the greatest purpose is conceptless, is idealist. You know, I had this perspective where I was like, okay, you know, I'm 1 in 8 billion human beings. 8 billion human beings have in some sense stepped out of the actual jungle into a concrete jungle. And you can say the concrete jungle was the effort of an animal to internally live a life. In the concrete jungle of 2022, or in the trenches of, you know, a pre-technologically awakened species. That means right now people think we have access to advanced technology, but this is nothing. In the future, children will have access to group minds. Children will know things, and the mystery of consciousness would expand in such a way where it's as if like the soul becomes space. Right now, human beings have a relationship with matter. They have a relationship with the outcome of the matter. Their conception of the future is for matter. But if somebody was to wonder about the future of space, the future of mind, the future of awareness, the purpose of consciousness is to not just find a new world, but to enter it. What the human species is, or the intelligence of the human species, is a cup that each generation of human beings that are born are filling it up to the brim, and then it pours out a bit more, and eventually the species becomes the fountain of its own survival. Right now, the dimensions of civilization 1.0 are disconnected. What that means is the greatness is inactive. It's like we're experiencing the sleeping giant phase of the potential of the species. And I am, in some sense, with these Mr.Within talks, trying to, in some sense, shout as loud as I can, even though it will end up just as a whisper, you know, to the ears of the future humanity. You know, it's as if the past messed up, you know, and the present messed up, and then the people in the present were like, who do we call? You know, somebody was like, Ghostbusters, you know, Mr.Within was like, no, we call our future selves, right? What God is the greatest ability, which the greatest ability of the conceivable is inconceivable. Dear listeners, being a human being on a rock in the middle of nowhere, having a sort of individualized body and individualized mind, this is the privilege of a phase in nature. Do you know nature has a ruthlessness, but it also has a gentleness? You know, I would say nature's style is gentle ruthlessness, you know. It's like, you know, the power that moved Gandhi's non-violent movement, you know. I know some people who don't like Gandhi, I know some people who like Gandhi, but I was very fascinated by a story. There's this story about Gandhi. Gandhi is sitting in this room alone, meditating, and he's waiting for an answer, and somebody knocks, at Gandhi's house, and this guy comes in kind of in a hysteria, a bit nervous, and he says, "Gandhi, everybody's waiting. What should we do? What should we do?" And Gandhi says to this guy, "The answer has not come to me. Leave me right now." And so the guy leaves, and after I don't know how much time, right, the guy comes knocking again and says, "Gandhi, the people are waiting. We don't know what to do." And Gandhi says, "The answer has not come to me." And then the third time when the guy comes knocking on the door, he knocks on the door opens, and he says, "Gandhi, what should we do?" But Gandhi is silent. He just stands up as if in that moment that guy doesn't exist and it's only his purpose. And Gandhi begins just silently walking towards the beach. And so this is recorded. You could find footage of this online. And when people in the street see Gandhi just simply walking towards the beach, you know what it is? They all gather, they all go to the beach. Gandhi grabs the salt, which the colonized, I think British Empire was not allowing like Indian people to, access their own salt. They had to pay for it, And so it was, in some sense, a very profound divine moment where it was as if ignoring chaos because the order is naturally there. There is simple, to me, the geniuses of the future generations are those who simply manage to go past complex obstacles. You see, to me, in my outer realms, really, all I can talk about is the advanced civilization. It's the argument of all arguments, right? But in the inner realms, I would say I am not trying to build an advanced civilization behind my eyes. Behind my eyes, every day I wake up, I am wondering what is the most advanced communication of the universal sector. So it's as if in front of your eyes, you're looking for the progress of matter. Behind your eyes, you're wondering about how space is giving an allowance for subjective content to overlay over the outer realms. This ability to use the inner realm and outer realm, something, guys, I think I should say maybe once at least in these talks. I read an article somebody had wrote about the inner realm and outer realm, and it sounded very similar to what I was saying. And then I thought, for a second, okay, what do I do with this? And then I realized that really my intent is not the satisfaction of 100 years of life, which is the expected lifespan of the human being, but it is the satisfaction of the destiny of the human species. You see, it's as if they asked this person, "Who do you serve?" And the person boldly said, "I serve myself." And then they asked this other person, "Who do you serve?" And the person was like, "I serve this company." And then they asked this person, "Who do you serve?" And somebody was like, "I serve this leader." And then they asked, "Who do you serve?" And eventually you realize the greatest thing you can serve is the future generations. If whoever you are listening to me, if you make the unborn future generations your employer or your boss or your king, you will be able to serve the realm in such a miraculous way. Because let me tell you, the fear of mind is the position it holds. To me, people look at kings and they think they were just egotistical fools. But to me, the archetype of the king was the human being that could accept the causal position of the system. Those who cannot accept how existence is causing experience, they suffer. The experience tries to change the existence. Do you know how many spiritual people think they're spiritual, but they're actually, let's say, hidden egoic escapists in disguise? Really, the greatest teaching is how do we get a species to stop fearing how it's reacting to emptiness. And so it's as if somebody was like, "Yo man, we need hope." And some wise man said, "No, before you seek hope, look at the hopeless. Look at the failure, look at the absence." Do you see, this is something that, there's some who wonder about failure before they move a single step. Those to me are very advanced beings because they've had the courage of wondering about how chaos renders meaning and how order renders meaning. You see, this is where we're heading as a species. We're heading towards the most advanced possibilities of intelligence. And fear is the limitation. People fear God without realizing everything is God moving, technically. That means if I wanted to be religious right now, there would be no point of speaking or moving at all. It would be as if God is in control, then I'm in the passenger seat of manifestation. Then what's the point of doing anything? I'm not in the driver's seat. I don't know. I'm not controlling where it goes, right? But the advanced human being would realize that they are poetically in the driver's seat. As if poetically what the soul is how the universe, how the macrocosm moves the microcosm. Sometimes I would say I find myself having a time traveler's ego, just a sense of self. Sometimes I, fathom having a sort of, let's say, a general's tactician or strategist kind of ego. There's times where I find myself entertaining the pilot ego. But in all these situations, I realize the free will is just the cosmic participant. Nature is so powerful and mighty that if human beings succeed or fail, it will still do its thing. A collective command is the remembrance of an original field of activity. People say, it's easier to talk than walk the walk. And I would say, of course, because that's the nature of the mind. The mind should be used as an information gathering system, an information generating system. The body should be treated as, in some sense, the outcome of this information, and the soul poetically should be treated as the mysteries of space. People say I had an out-of-body experience, and I'm like, okay, that's when there's, somebody's blinded by spiritual ideology. And then there's somebody, imagine, who says I had an out-of-mind experience. And so what does that mean? That means there's nothing more mysterious than unconsciousness, and there's nothing more knowable than consciousness. We are such an advanced intelligence. Let me tell you, whoever's listening, anybody who's ever had a dream, what has been happening is that your body has been asleep in the bed, and your mind created a body for you, which in some sense it could move in the dream world. Do you understand? The mind doesn't need the body to give you the experience of your moving in your dreams. The mind is so advanced that it's as if two worlds are overlaid on one another so precisely that we can't tell if intelligence is Purusha or Prakriti, if intelligence is consciousness-based or matter-based. Because of their strange simultaneity, it's as if there is a vertical dimension and a horizontal dimension. And the intersection of these two dimensions is how human consciousness is happening. The intersection of space and matter being a sort of a self-survival reception point. It's as if we're an antenna that it survives like an animal. You know what I realized? I realized that there is a simplicity, there is a perfection to nature, that the moment the human being trusts the moment It's as if the king has bowed to the kingdom and the kingdom has bowed to the king. You see, it's the notion of cause, the story of cause into effect, and the story of the effect back into the cause. You see? Imagine there was a blacksmith, okay, who was just the most gentlest blacksmith alive in a village, medieval village back in the day, in a medieval kingdom. And imagine this blacksmith it was midday, he was working, and so the moment he was working, he, in some sense, like, imagine the kingdom was on siege. So imagine you're just like this like chill blacksmith, and then suddenly like war happens, your kingdom's being conquered by the neighboring kingdom. And so it's as if the blacksmith for the first time meshes all that he knows with the archetype of the warrior. This is the I would say the greatness that is brewed through necessity. Those people who live under conditions of necessity, it's as if the more harder life is, the smarter you are, you treat it as training, as if you've been blessed with greater training. Just like a martial artist would go into the forest and train, and then he would, and there was somebody who learned to fight, let's say in the battlefield, it becomes something where it's as if you are being blessed with intensity of reality simulation, so the inner witness gets trained for it. People say they have memories, but really what's going on is we are tunneling through how we hold reality creation. Or a better word would be reality simulation. For me, this world has mysteries that make it impossible to measure it. It's as if, dark matter, dark energy, they're like hidden in the unobservable universe. And whatever measurement we have of the observable universe, because we can't measure the edge of the sky, it's as if the meaning of physicality is abstract. Believe it or not, it's like we're an object that has evolved to see itself as a subject. Now the subject moves the object, thinking that a subject is moving an object, but then realizing actually the whole moment is a sphere of awareness. It's as if like we are candles, and the brain is the wick of the candle, consciousness is the flame of the candle. It's as if the mind is the glow of the candle. The brain is the wick of the candle, and the wax part of the candle, the body of the candle, is in some sense the body of the human being. Every day that I'm alive on this planet, I'm like, we're candles here. And as the Buddha says, the vision of compassion, it's as if one candle illuminating all the candles without its own flame becoming lessened. That's one of the challenges of service. How do you serve the world without being destroyed in the process? How do you build an advanced civilization with the maintenance of every moment should be advanced, right? For me, the concept of advancement is the purification of attention that has in some sense been attached to memory. For me, I'm pretty much like, I looked at human beings on the planet and I'm like, who are the most worthy to build an advanced civilization? And believe it or not, it was the mystics and philosophers. Because for them, the unknown variables to meaning still remained. This was the difference, the great battle, poetically, between the analytical philosophers and the continental philosophers. The analytical philosophers wanted to limit the meaning of the world to what the five senses were, right? The analytical philosophers were in some sense saying that the senses was the the actuality, right? The continental philosophers realized that the senses is in some senses is in a space. So in some sense you can say the analytical philosopher was like brain hallucinates mind, every hallucination of mind is devoid of, let's say, empirical meaning, you know. So I'm saying the analytical philosophers got convinced that the brain is simulating, is just imagination is unreal, because reality is not imagination. You know, it's like there has to be a difference between objects and subjects, right? But the continental philosopher was like, hey, analytical philosopher buddy, you can't know. It's as if there is an unknown thing. You know, there's a mysterious, there's an unknown X variable in the equation of what the mind is doing or how it's happening, right? That unknown X variable is just it's like the continental philosophers were brave enough to keep the mystery of the mind, to guard the mystery of the mind from, let's say, you know, just an analysis. You know, life is way more than how we photograph it in a single moment. Like, life is a dynamic process. It's like, really, to me, the more brave a person is, the more unknown variables they can pilot through. Pretty much, guys, the title of this episode, it's like an inner event, guys. I don't know how to tell you. It's pretty much this moment where I felt I was just commanding the universal sector to realize that its own advancement is beyond any story of an ego. Right now, people need stories to be people, because the idea of the person is based on shape. You know, imagine let's say hypothetically in a sci-fi scenario, a very liberated and enlightened extraterrestrial from Andromeda came to Earth, from the Andromeda galaxy, very compassionate, benevolent, bodhisattvic level of an extraterrestrial came down to Earth from the Andromeda galaxy, and human beings went to this extraterrestrial and were like, oh, wise being, right? Tell us, like, what are we as human beings? It's like, what's the mystery of consciousness? It's like, who are we human beings? And so imagine that advanced extraterrestrial looks at us and tells you what we are considering the human being is maybe like 5% of what we actually are as a being, as an intelligence of being. Really, the mystery is grand. And for me, true mysticism, they use this sentence, like, mysticism can be just put into this sentence: lover of the unknown. It's as if after you have loved the observable universe, like it's like you're, let's say, you have universal emanations of compassion based on the inner freedoms of your mind, right? There's this Gnostic perception of the purpose of the soul, which I think is important to talk about, and Terence McKenna does this way better than I can. But what Terence McKenna suggested, or how would I say it? In the Gnostic perception of reality, it seems they have this view, and it seems that this is also similar in what they call the Baha'i faith. But what it seems to be is that there is a light. The soul is like a potential. It's like a light that is trapped in each living being. And so the purpose of wisdom or life was to release the inner light into the outer world. It's as if, imagine poetically, the soul, the center of your soul, the central sun, is how, like, behind your eyes, you are being the sun of a universe, the illuminator of perception. You know, and so it's as if how this light from the inner realms enters the outer realms. It's pretty much, they had this thing that a material entity's purpose was to release a sort of inner light. Okay, that was the Gnostic view. The reason I'm sharing that is that for me, the metaphor of light and potential are the same. It's pretty much saying every human being has a secret ability, like an ultimate ability, that they have to, it's their choice if they use, it's their choice if they activate, it's their choice how much they identify with the stories of the past or the discoveries of the future. You know, I guess it can be said that every person is living, let's say, 3 types of lives through time. Every person, that means in every moment the person has access to how they have existed in past moments, which is their memory. They have access to how they're being present, which is their direct experience, and then they have access in how their memories can be experienced. This is really the source of imagination. I'm telling you, it's a curiosity about the design of worlds. Okay, this is how the mind activates. The mind is not just the self entering the world. That's the, people who do that, they tire themselves out. It's as if, imagine there was this unsolvable problem and a person's like, how do I solve the unsolvable problem? And then they were like, okay, if it's an unsolvable problem, it must have an unsolvable answer, And so an unsolvable answer would be an answer that has no effort to solve, right? So I'm trying to tell people that you can reset your attention by just watching how your mind is being the whole moment of being, and then you notice that your body is part of the movement of the space that is being televised, right? And every person has an inner realms, but it's very strange how this activates. To me, it's kind of like there needs to be a decency towards the simplicity of nature. And then at the same time, there needs to be a fascination for how the future is an evolutionary ability of human beings to build the world before they actually build it. To design the future, right? That's what, like, how else can human beings access the future, Imagine somebody was like, Mr. Within, all right, I get it. I care for the future generations now. But, what can I do about that? And the idea is that we can be pioneers. That means, believe it or not, it's as if every state of mind has its own history. Its history suggests its current purpose. If we were to look at the dimensions of culture, I'll give you something interesting here. The cultural being means after the human biology is healthy enough to be mobile, when the human body is able to be present. It's as if I'm saying after a biological freedom, the biology is in the future generations, in an advanced civilization, people won't just be healthy. The whole species is trying to advance the lifespan of the human being beyond just 100 years, because what does it matter how many years the life is? The idea is what time is being used for, right? So I'm trying to say, I guess, that after the biology is free, then the person begins to wonder about the mystery of psychology. It's all force-based on some level without the need to give it an emotional story. That means the nature of truth is just the presence of being. If the purpose of the human mind, let's say for a second we just, for the sake of Civilization 2.0, we just wonder that Civilization 2.0 is going to be how, regardless of how there were nations, all nations are sub-nations, sub-nations of the kingdom of humanity, or the kingdom of the human species. For me, this is an honor system required as a necessary collective ethos. That means if all the world leaders, like if aliens attack right now, humanity would unite. If there was some sort of natural disaster, humanity would unite. right? What we are seeing, really, politics being, is the behavior of the world with itself. And in order not to get rid of the past, like imagine all nations right now, they each have their unique, let's treat it this way, that politics is actually how all nations are like children in a classroom. Now, because these children in the classroom are waiting for the teacher or don't have a teacher, all these nations in the class, all these students in the classroom are fighting among each other. And so the moment the teacher comes in, suddenly all the nations, all the students act humanist. You know, it's as if the true enemy of humanity is not itself. The true enemy of humanity is really time. Time is the challenge. Without time, there's no meaning. Without death, what the hell was love? You know? without reality, it's as if what's the point of its beyond? Divinity is present. Divinity is how intelligence is being present. If this dimension of all the nations were, let's say one nation decided to go to war with another nation, in this context I'm trying to say, it would be as if other world leaders would be like, buddy, we're all just one species on a rock. What are you doing? Killing, leading to the, why delete the potential of an advanced civilization? To me, war is, in the future, it's all like video game companies are gonna be able to stop war globally. Like in the future, the leaders of nations, like there's going to be video game designers who's going to go accurately create like a video game version of each nation's military, and instead of people fighting, world leaders playing, a video game, and whoever wins. Instead of there being, human casualties, there's in some sense like digital cyber video game casualties. I'm just trying to say that the species, without having an honor for the future of the whole system, is lifeless. It's time that every person doesn't even think about the concept of globalism, just thinks about the concept of what it means to be a universal being. That means there's a universe happening and we're being a part of it. And so, what are we choosing to identify as in this cosmos, not just in civilization? Guys, I'll read something for you. I wrote this essay in this book, unpublished book, called The Source of Language. I wrote this essay that I think it was called, let me see if I can find it. I wrote this in 2015. Let me see. I think it was called The Golden Drop. Okay, there we go. So this is an essay I wrote, guys, based on a unique inner realm event that happened in 2015. The essay is from, again, I'll say it, The Source of Language. book I've written, which is unpublished yet, and the essay is called The Golden Drop Vision. A golden drop was thrown in the depths of an abstract physical universe. What can be received from the cosmos that we can truly comprehend? The title of this chapter is a personal one for me. I remember a moment came to me that I was in my greater omniscient form, throwing a golden drop with a message in it into the depths of my own mind, which at the same time was synonymous for me as the depths of my world as well. Like a message with a bottle, could a golden drop have been thrown to a drum? I think this is the unedited version because I thought there was more to it. Yeah. The next essay is called How Does the World Begin? Okay, I'm going to read this, guys. Why not? Yeah. My inner realms could have an intermission here. How does the world begin? That's the name of the essay. How does the world begin when angelic light has forgiven science for its ignorance? How will God's hand move God's hand? The humble man is wiser than the rest, for you are never alone in a universe so alive. Should the ant be considerate of the boot, or should evolution's evolution be the absolute? The world we construct usually is affected by words that constructed our identity, the ego's origin, which is an in quotations I thought. Humanity allows for divine clarity to naturally bloom towards destiny's light. Self-realization means the whole moment is what you are. Who can ask and answer at the same time? Who can breathe beyond space and time and realize an individual never existed? Conceptually, the void roars into the spontaneous manifestation of such an absolute infinity that the first order of business is wondering who is running it, soon through sincere and humble flows, in the free signs that are found already done before left. Madness only exists in language. What secret could desolate wastelands be keeping other than the greatest ambition of man, that is to save the mankind that it already is? Are you just seeing human beings outside of your house, or are you seeing a spark of unspeakable and awe-inspiring divine intelligence playfully growing as one whole moment that cannot possibly inquire about how existence is existence beyond frames? Many sages throughout the ages have spoken about a veil of duality in our reality. The secret vision is that the veil is not opened by us. If the whole cosmos is watching you right now, how would you behave? Unity does not lie to itself. Humility is the way of the path. Regardless of the moment of abstract orbits, imagination was an enlightened sage guiding itself home. The veil opens from the other side, meaning once the sincere and humble state is received, the butterfly of revelation shall land on your forehead. The ultimate vision remembers it was always the ultimate vision. We're not a glitch in the system. We're the presence of such a vast stage of creation that the chosen ones are their own divine audience. As the glow in past life and future life communication is shifted so within that you're no longer seeking a concept but longing for an enlightening reunion. It does not mean heaven has made you lazy. It is just that when you realize the truth of this reality, you realize you're it. Somewhere right now, a Zen master is clapping and a scientist is crying. The human experience is navigated through known and unknown moments for the self-aware presence of experience. What that means simply is that in life, there are pretty much moments when you know how to do something, and there are moments so unknown that you cannot do anything. In the latter, usually the inspiration for the divine remembrance is increased. Fear is a great motivational speaker. However, it is only our own mind that we have ever feared. For where is the idea of your reality originating from? The natural world is a gate to transcendental bliss. Consciousness was always simultaneously present as divine awareness. Honestly begin wondering, if greatness was your homework problem assigned from school, what would the answer be? Cultivate truth, for the moment is not a voice that needs to shout, it has an ego. The quickest way to learn the history of the universe is to realize you were always being it. Beyond the need to thank our stars, there's a hidden voice that speaks about an unhidden world. The idea is not the focus here, your state of awareness and to how attention is being existence at once is. Have you noticed there was no time needed to create the concept of, in quotations, time? Space is a wise teacher. God is not an idea. The divinity of your moment already knows what to do. How could nature, with a capital N, not? A free being is freely being. All that is cannot make a mistake. That's the end of the essay. Sometimes, guys, I would look at life and I'm like, what is this? What am I looking at? You know, and it's honestly like the mind's movement plus how the outer realms has its own flow. Imagine an advanced civilization where the species has just accepted it wants to benevolently go towards extinction. It wants to, whether it's inevitable extinction or not, or whatever vision, the species has chosen that it rather move gracefully, right? So imagine compassion, benevolence, and grace. These three were made a sort of universal command in human interaction. And the idea was that the potential of humanity is way more than what it appears as. They tell us not to judge a book by the cover, but it's hilarious, you know? If we don't judge the book by the cover, what do we judge the book by? And the answer is to enter its meaning. Every person's mind is like a mysterious way life is happening. Like every person has to realize their mind is their teacher. How their intelligence is happening is the point. You know, imagine that blacksmith I was saying earlier. He goes into the battlefield and he's running in there with a hammer, and suddenly, you know, the enemy soldiers come and, you know, he hits one of them, but the hammer falls out of his hand. And then this blacksmith just looks at the sky and says, Thor, just says one word, just says Thor. You know, and instantly imagine a hammer from the sky falls in his hand. Or a hammer in the sky falls hitting all the opponents, you know, and defending the kingdom. Imagine just this hammer moving on its own, hitting like all the soldiers, and this blacksmith is just, you know, kneels in honor or something. What the gods are really, they are the greater potential of everything. You know, there's this incredible story that is attributed to this Rama. Rama in Indian culture, he's the archetype of the perfect man, you know. That means he was like the divine man, right? Not a divine god, but a divine man. But technically a divine man is a divine god, you know. So Rama has this story where he's saying this to people, and pretty much actually how the story starts is somebody runs up to Rama and it's like, Rama, well, you know, I'm a busy man. Why do I need to work for enlightenment? Like, why should I care for this? Right? And Rama looks at this guy and pretty much all the people in the town who were listening. He tells them that the human, like Earth, this dimension, this world we're in, the Earth, the realm of Earth, it is a blessing, right? And people are like, what do you mean? There's so much suffering. And he says, okay, let me say how the story goes. Rama tells the people that it's a privilege to work in this dimension. And the reason it's a privilege to work in this dimension, because in lesser dimensions, they can't ask the question of consciousness. They are too looped out in unconsciousness to ask the question, right? And the higher dimensions, the gods are receiving so many offerings. It's such a perfect universe that the gods never have to question their greater source. You know? So in some sense, Rama was saying Earth has the conditions and the proper circumstances for a multidimensional being to awaken to its true nature. Do you know? It's honestly like, do you know what it is? It's like being a human being is like how an invisible force wanted to journey through a visible world. So the idea was that the human dimension is the perfect place to get enlightened. There's even stories of like a sage named Mr.Within, and the gods come down to get advice from the sage, right? Or 100% probably in like Nordic mythology, right? Like Viking mythology. Like their elders would probably like meet the gods or something. Alright guys, I just sneezed. I'm gonna get a jacket. I'll be back. Okay, to continue. Just talks all over the place. The inspiration of this episode was how I felt like the source of my soul gave a command to all beings in my awareness, to all beings in the universal sector, that in some sense the smartest approach to all problems, that means whatever type of being you are listening to me right now, if you're a conscious being, or let's say in the future there's clones and androids, you know, or animals somehow with technology, we become conscious like to the human level, right? It's as if whatever you are, whatever type of consciousness you are in the realm, in this whole universal sector that is listening, the idea and the human game has been in some sense to wonder about what it is and to pursue the quest. If this quest is stopped, it's as if like the source of wonder and fascination is being blocked for the species. There's this quote by Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. He says the earth is the cradle of humanity, but mankind cannot stay in the cradle forever. Really what it is that the idea of advancement surpasses the idea of chaos and order. And it's another way of saying chaos and order are bound to the infinite possibility. You know, some people look at reality and they're like, yo, that's impossible. Imagine like Edison went to his, you know, crew and he was like, yo guys, I want to build a miniature sun. And people were like, get out of here, Edison, nobody can do that. You know, it's impossible. And so Edison, let's say, gets the light bulb set up and he's like, guys, check it out, I built a miniature sun, and suddenly everybody sees he's pulled off the conceptual reality of it. Like, it must have been, guys, a bit transcendental and supernatural when light bulbs were entering the homes, It's as if the shift from candle psychology to light bulb psychology, there's a huge story there, At the end of the day, life is about how we interpret it. How we interpret it is based on how we experienced it. How we experienced it is based on how we previously experienced it and feel we can experience it. The issue with the psychology of the species in Civilization 1.0 is that imagination is first being told that it's not real. Then the second part is that imagination is being denied because the past needs to succeed. Right, it's hilarious the conditions of the world right now we find ourselves. It's as if so many moments are colored by the past, and those moments that are not colored by the past, they feel exiled from the destiny of the species. The idea has to be that is the future of the species more important than the individual? And we're reaching a point where the species is smart enough to do both pretty much. We're smart enough to manage individual, let's say, victories and collective victories. I think the nature of the mind that it is reevaluating its value in every moment. When the body is calm, the same movement that was inspired to leave the body moves through the mind. Imagine a person is angry and they're about to do something that an angry person shouldn't, and instead of suddenly doing that angry act, right, imagine in like all these domestic violence scenarios, okay? Before the husband or wife gets violent, right? It's as if before they get violent, they just lie down on the ground. This should be the emergency fire extinguisher for all anger situations, that you just lie down on the ground. When a person lies down, it's really hard to get angry. Gravity makes it hard to get angry. And so instead of the person, let's say, expressing their anger physically, they just lie down on the ground and they close their eyes, and in their imagination they release that anger. It's like the same sort of release of anger. Let's say there's somebody at a hotel staff, and this whole person in, let's say, this high-end hotel, is treated bad by like a trillionaire or something. Okay? It's as if like you take the energetic, it's as if you take the energetic expression of one moment, and instead of reacting to it, you take it into the inner realms and you just let it slowly dissipate. The best metaphor I have heard for the mind is how the poet Rumi has this quote where he says, "Let the waters settle and you shall see the moon and stars mirrored in your own being." Something in those lines. And what he means is that the mind is something that the less you put any effort in you thinking you're using it, like, how do I tell you, the mind is because it's part of nature, it's like the heart and the lungs. It has an ability to, I don't want to say go on autopilot, but in some sense nature has a rhythm which the mind is originating from. Based on the dimensions you acknowledge to the world, you have mobility in the world. If somebody was like, okay, let's say there is an advanced possibility, just like somebody makes a chess move, other chess masters look at it and it's like, yeah, this guy could have done better. Similarly, the human species is trying something out, and let's say there's so many ways we could do it better. Now the species is wondering, okay, what is the most advanced state of being? And the answer comes that all individual human beings, individual consciousness has reached its ultimate advancement. That means the ultimate advancement of biological intelligence. Philosophers of the future generations have to figure this out. Right. Pretty much the realm of the object. Right, and then we have the realm of the mind. That means where it's as if not just the physiological destination of the species, but the psychological destination of the species. If you classify reality as if like matter existence is just instantaneously there, and consciousness is the add-on to existence. And this add-on has an ability to project life and then animate as it. It's as if they were to ask any public speaker, it's as if behind their eyes they're on a different stage. To reach the advanced, like not only individual human beings need to be advanced, not only all cultures need to be advanced, not only all nations need to be advanced, not only everything that the human consciousness and free will can reach requires to just pursue advancement as the highest honor. That means imagine there was a company and there was an employee who, like, there were better employees than him. And the boss goes to that employee and says, in honor of it, the spirit of advancement of the species, you know, it's as if we need to demote you or something. And the person says, in honor of the, spirit of advancement of the species, it's like, the future will be, something like that. I don't know. Well, when I'm just trying to paint this scenario where the honor of the whole system gives us as much purpose as the dishonored individual seeking purpose, So I'm pretty much saying, like, the idea is just advancement is being universalized. We're thinking about the advancement of human beings, we're thinking about the advancement of the planet, the advancement of the galaxy, advancement of the universal sector. Eventually we realize that, it's as if the mind, it's kind of hilarious, guys. It's as if space is eternal and matter is temporary. And so if we identify with the matter, we're like, no way, we keep going in and out. It's like if somebody was like, how do you define karma and samsara? It's like, have you ever seen a dolphin jump in and out of water? Just the pursuit of advancement. It's pretty much, like I would say, my strategy to suffer. It's as if, sure, there's suffering, but what do we do about it? At least if we're going to suffer, we should attempt the most advanced. I feel there is, like, guys, this idea is so important, and maybe I don't have the proper words for it right now, but it's pretty much this view that I'm saying every moment, if it's alive, is alive in the context of its own greatness. Right? It's as if in the outer realms there's a display of our physical existence, but behind our eyes there is in some sense a self being the whole moment. The way the human intelligence is happening, it's just like, it's like how, like, it's like all you can do about a question mark is turn it into poetry. The potential of life is the presentation of many different kinds of beings in one space. The ability that an organism has is that it can interact with the world. That's the ability of self. The ability the world has is to be any self. It's as if, like, God, how would I say? It's as if the future is looking through the eyes of everyone right now. The future is seeking itself through those who are alive now. It's as if, like, if humanity fails, like if the past fails, and if the present fails, the only option, like, that's when time travelers would be, we'd know if time traveling is real or not. When humanity makes a colossal mistake and some sort of force from the future comes to correct it. It's as if all wars in the universe ended. Why? Because the wonder for the edge of the universe surpassed. It's as if, imagine all beings in a universal sector aligned to discover the edge of the universe. You know, true wisdom is that no conscious creature in existence can know truly what existence is. They can know how they are existing as being existence, but they cannot know the true edges. And so really what the human being is left with is either attempting to make sense of an infinite world, or in some sense using its limitations to first bring forth the era of the advanced individual. That means it's a calling to all those with skill in whatever sector of this civilization they find themselves. It's as if Mr.Within is trying to sing a song with it, a song of an advanced civilization for the species. And those who hear the song, truly, they will realize in whatever realm they have access to, they require to bring forth the most advanced. It's the spirit of advancement, acting as a poetic backup system, guardian angel to the species. It's as if the archaic revival that Terence McKenna spoke about, he forgot to mention one thing: the archaic revival is alive. The force that resurfaces its might after eons is alive. You know? To me, something incredible is going to happen. A species bored of its materialistic edge, a species bored of how it's being a subject, will suddenly realize that the new dimensions of reality shift the self into a new self. The spirit of exploration is the closest thing to divinity. You see, any parent on this planet, you raise your child as an explorer of just reality, you know. It's as if, what is the purpose of life? To live for its purpose. The ability of the mind is that it is the permission giver for its own freedom. People don't realize this, so they experience only the dimension of the effects of reality. If you, when I, in these talks of mine, I tell people you gotta be your presence and then your personality. Usually it's personality trying to access spiritual presence. You know, like there's the ego shackling the individual. The idea is that in the simplest state of the human being is just being itself. The human is a projection, it is an acceptance, it is in some sense the paint we throw on an empty canvas. When you are in your presence, the remarkable thing is that not only your intelligence is automated, but it's as if through the trust of nature, you begin to see your mind activate before you doing anything. Do you know what it is? Imagine the human mind is like this invisible spaceship, and that when the human being finds a way to access it, it's as if suddenly the spaceship becomes visible. But when it becomes visible, it doesn't matter what the person thought the spaceship was when it was invisible. It's another way of saying that the invisible can't be seen, but it is present. There are forces at work in life where they are, in some sense, the guardians of hope. I am telling you, there's something that is shielding the innocence and the decency of a natural organism to be natural in the world. Do you know? We have feared the future, or we have feared to care for the future, because we thought the present was the only game. The greatest thing that human beings in 2022 can do is try to go as far as they can. That means it's as if we don't want a species one step ahead. We don't want a species two steps ahead. We want every human being to look at the advanced civilization and to fathom as far as they can. Do you know? When we honor the possibility, the impossible fades. You know, that's the power of intelligence. You know, it's like, you know, every atheist's ancestors probably believed in some sort of God. The world started being a place where man was not alone. And the more we became materialists, the more we had to accept our loneliness. And to accept our loneliness has become our truth. Why? Because the species is accepting its loneliness in the universal sector. It's hilarious. It's as if like not only people are lonely and there's lo-fi music, but there's at the same time the loneliness of a species in the void. That is where I think the greatest generals of mankind will stare at. You know, that's the terrace of perception. You know, that is the lighthouse for the future. You see, greatness is a possibility. That means if imagine you were the most advanced being in existence, right? Imagine there was a parent who had a child. Imagine you had a daughter, you know. I don't have children, but I'm just saying, imagine you had a daughter, right? And you were the most advanced being in the universal sector. I'm not saying the word God, but I'm saying the most advanced being in the universal sector. And imagine your daughter asked you, why can't the world be a better place? And then what would you as an advanced being do? The idea is that there is a journey to greatness, and this journey has to be oriented with faith in one's own abilities. You have to trust, you know, it's as if when the spirit is in the driver's seat, the mind is in the passenger seat, and the body is the vehicle, right? The more a person trusts life, the more they're saying, all right, universal intelligence happen, right? And so when they notice what is being here, it's as if the questions of man dissolve into how God's eyes were only look. The ultimate command for all individual entities is to wonder about what the collective would be like. You know, and the human species will have an honor for all life, that not only would we find a way to no longer eat animals, but we would build technologies to try to enhance them. And imagine some technology was built in the future that animals could talk, right? Some AI could somehow find a way to translate, you know, an animal's mind into, let's say, like a squirrel's mind into a voice, human voice. We must not just enlighten ourselves, we We must not just enlighten the universal sector, but we must have the ability to have realized that from the beginning the potential of greatness is alive. The potential of greatness is an eternal idea. It's as if the idea of humanity can never die. It is in some sense it has become a memory of the cosmos. It's as if we have entered the cosmic mind. And so the human species is alive right now. How many civilizations like ours have rose and fallen. And right now the species' biggest task is not to just instantly accept the global initiative, but just realize that what does the species deserve? What do 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere deserve? Anybody who thinks about this answer, your true nature will be revealed. And if your true nature is one where you're trying to steal the future, you're trying to take from the future, you're going to realize that the future corrects itself. Man's knowledge takes him to the edge of the unknown. Man's personality experiences the presence of the unknown. The moment the presence of the unknown is experienced, the edge of conception and the edge of the ego has been found. It's as if the ego that desired power glitched in the journey. The moment it glitched, it realized it wasn't an ego. The freedom of attention is beyond shape. And shape has been, geometry is what man has feared. But geometry is a portal to, I would say, the greater skies. The greatest command to all beings. Advance infinitely until not the task is done, you have become the task. It's as if we were alive once. What is the greatest effort of a species on the void? What greater command can be given? It's as if leaders of chaos, leaders of order, run to your advanced civilization, and you will free yourself from endless reincarnation of good, bad, shape, no shape, invisible, eternal, temporary. All of this, your mind will be released because you have found that the future's destiny is the release of the future from us. Novelty needs to be prioritized over belief. It's as if don't just believe in ideas, believe in the greatness of your own eyes and how the future deserves our greatest advancement. Like, I want the human species and its advancement to build civilization 2.0. I want the human species in the history books to be remembered as if when people think about how did people live in 2022, the answer was that they were trying to live 10,000 years ahead of their time. And so imagine if the future generations realized this, and it was as if they get shocked that rather than fearing how the world will change, we went to the front lines of it. There is so many there are so many possibilities that remain as hidden angles undiscovered. Whoever you are, the greatest way you can contribute, I would say, to Mr.Within's gift and this whole YouTube effort, this project, is by wondering, by just for 10 to 20 minutes sitting down and wondering about what is the source of everything that is happening. And to just watch the mind, not give a shit about if you have a thought or not. It's as if just watch how your mind is happening and act as if you're no student, there is no teacher, there is no holy being, there's none of that. It can be in some sense poetic, it can be poetically don't touch any thought and just watch the moment. And if you trust the moment through your simplicity and effortlessness and expectationlessness, right, you will be fascinated how your own mind, its movements begin revealing its nature to you. When the ripples on the pond settle, it's another way of saying freedom was just how the antenna was held. Man's vision, man's ability to see a future where greatness has become second nature. And advanced civilization was advanced from the beginning. And now it begins, the great revelation, an outpouring of 8 billion inner universes into one outer universe. It's as if what would the hands of the species build and what would the mind of the species design? And then poetically, what would the soul of the species remember? What else can someone say that when you are in the theater of the void, in the manifest theater of the void, all that one can do is, in some sense, go towards the greatest performance, the greatest work. The greatest work is future universalism. It's how the future deserves something so much better than what we're all seeing. And it's possible. It's possible right now for the species, right now, human beings all around the world. They should just create philosophical communities, with their, friends and people around them. And in some sense, the whole point of the philosophical community, the advanced philosophical communities, let's say on the planet, they become ones where people are just honestly wondering about what is the most advanced things that a human being can do in any situation. The idea is that we want the whole species to attempt the greatest problems of the world, and we want the whole species to provide answers, and we want to create a sort of network where the greatest ideas all over the planet can instantly find themselves onto, you can say, the front lines of how civilization is being structured. There's enough intelligent people on this planet to build a world, to reset it. Like I am telling you, it's like the destiny of the human species is in the hand of designers. Who thought? Who would have thought? That now designers have to look at the void and choose how humanity will walk into the future. Your mind is, it's like poetically when a king realizes he's been the whole kingdom. Behind your eyes in the kingdom of the inner realms, the king is the world. That means just by the mere way attention moves, the world's gonna appear, come and go. Like the world changes way quicker behind our eyes than in front of our eyes. But because it changes quicker behind our eyes, we have an ability to control its speed. To pilot a life force. And so, let's say one wanted to build such an advanced one, like there was such a great vision towards an advanced humanity, to an advanced civilization, that even the gods of mythology manifested to help build the advanced civilization. Imagine, like, in the sci-fi scenario, aliens have invaded the planet, and there's this somehow scientific genius who manages to create a machine that makes imagination become real. So all the gods in mythology are somehow animated with some sort of strange nanotechnology with AI coordination. And so imagine, like, aliens are attacking and all the gods in mythology have animated, and they're defending the human species, It's like the day mythology saved the world, There's so many ways to look at that. In the honor of your future, your advanced self awaits its most advanced world.